Hello, I was asked to speak about Bottle Bakery. My name is Judy Edelman. I was born in Budapest, 1930, Hungary. I am here to talk about the origin of Bottle Bakery. Bottle Bakery started well before it was established in 1956. Eugene Edelman, the original owner of the bakery, was born in a small town in Hungary in 1923. Before World War II broke out, Eugene's father felt his children, Eugene and his two sisters, should prepare to leave the country. And with that in mind, they all had to learn a trade. At age 17, Eugene left for Szolnok, a larger town, to apprentice as a pastry chef. He learned to bake and decorate beautiful and delicious torts, petit fours, etc. By the time his apprenticeship was over, he was unable to continue working for that bakery because of the new law, as Jews could not work in a Gentile bakery any longer. By this time, the war was on, and Eugene's family was unable to leave for America, as it was impossible to get visas. He and his whole family ended up in Auschwitz, and all except Jean perished. His parents, Shoma and Yanka, in the gas chambers, and his two sisters, Matza and György, were shipped to Ravensbrück concentration camp and died there. Against all odds, Eugene survived it. In Birkenau, he worked in the judicial factory, where prisoners were checked regularly if they were in good enough health to work. 3 times he was taken out of the corral for the crematorium. Despite a permanent limb from a botched childhood surgery, due to his exceptional work habits, the station master, the Hefling, came and took him out of the line. That was pretty lucky for him. After liberation in January 1945, he found a sled and a blanket and started his long journey back to his hometown. The 250-kilometer walk took him a whole month. Once home, he waited a year for his family to return. Finally, realizing he was the only survivor, he crossed over to an Austrian refugee camp, where he spent a year and a half until at last his visa for Canada arrived. Eugene arrived to Toronto in 1948 and worked at Hasbred Bakery for 7 years, where he learned to bake the bread and the other pastries. I was brought to Winnipeg by the Jewish Congress in 1948 as an orphan, as I too lost my parents to the war. My father, Joseph, 46-year-old, died at Auschwitz and sent to the crematorium immediately on arrival. My mother, Gisela, 38 years old, was shipped to Stutthof, where she, her sister, and her niece all perished. I was lucky, thanks to Raoul Wallenberg, who issued false papers, special Swedish visas in Budapest, and with these visas, many of us have been saved. Once again, in Winnipeg, I was lucky being taken in by a wonderful family, the Ludwig and Karlinski families. I stayed in Winnipeg for a year. After that, I left for Toronto. A year after where I met Jean, we were married in 1952. Eugene always dreamt of opening his own bakery, but felt Toronto was not a place. There were too many bakeries, so we would have to move to a smaller town. Mrs. Karlinski, Grady as I called her, came for a Pioneer Woman meeting in Toronto. After we had told her about our dream to start our own bakery, she introduced us to Lil Pecos from Edmonton, who suggested we should come to Edmonton. Eugene quit his job in Toronto and went to see the possibilities. After traveling to Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, he decided Edmonton was the right place for a new bakery. Soon after our arrival, he met Joe Schechter from Tasty Made Bakery, who first wanted Eugene to join him in his bakery, but seeing that Eugene wanted his own business, not a partnership, he was extremely helpful in getting us started. He became a lifelong friend. In March 1956, Button Patisserie, as it was originally called, opened on 113th Avenue and 116th Street, a town shopping center. With $3,000, lots of good support from the community, and plenty of hard work. Eugene baked, and I did the cleaning, selling, and bookkeeping. As the bakery's reputation grew, we needed extra help. It was getting harder for the two of us to manage, especially since by then I was expecting our first child. Our first employee was Hulda, a very efficient and kind soul. She was older than we were and not only looked after the bakery, but after us as well. All the baking that was done by hand. We could not afford machines which would make the work easier. We both put in especially long, exceptionally long hours. One day, Mrs. Elsie Fillet came into the bakery and saw how hard we were working. The next day, her husband, Mickey, came in, took Eugene aside, and asked, "What would you need to make life easier?" Eugene answered, "We would need a bigger mixer, some other equipment, but we can't afford it." Mickey, "How much money would you need?" Mickey asked, "Whatever you need, you go to the bank and I will sign a loan for you." He did that. It was the most generous gesture. He did not really know us. We stayed at the location until November 1959, when we moved to the present location. Bottom Bakery played an important role in the Jewish, Hungarian, and Polish communities who were drawn to the bakeries, European-style breads, Hungarian torts, strudel, poppy, and walnut rolls. As the only kosher bakery at the time, Eugene shipped boxes of bread and pastries every Tuesday to Calgary from the old CN station downtown Edmonton to Woodward's Calgary, as well as regular shipments to customers in Yellowknife. Every year, the Edmonton Young Judea would operate a fundraising bagel drive when the kids would take over the bakery for the weekend and have baked packaged bagels, which they sold and delivered to make money for their programs. For many years, children's birthdays at the Old Talmud Torah were highlighted by bottles, vanilla, and chocolate cupcakes for their classmates in the lunchroom. Purim included poppy seed and fruit commendation. By that time, we had 3 sons, and after having some bad experiences babysitters, it was decided that I would stay home with the kids. Eugene worked extremely hard until the very end, sometimes working 20, 22 hours in a day. At one point, we had a couple of outlets and delivered to several Safeway stores in Edmonton, but it proved too much work for too little profit. Over the years, Bolton won many awards. For years, it won for the best Christmas cake, but also won for its specialty breads and pastries. In the late 60s, Bolton won first prize in a national baking competition. When Queen Elizabeth visited Edmonton to open the Commonwealth Games, Bolton had the honor to make petits-fours for the banquet. For many generations, special events in the city were generally accompanied with cakes and desserts from Bolton Bakery. Most of the children born in the 50s through the 80s remember the bakery's display cabinets and baked goods with great fondness. There was always a tray of cookies for the staff to give to the wide-eyed children. Parents and children alike will remember how the youngsters would stand in front of the first two cabinets, which had the cookies and cupcakes. The ginger boys and rafts hoping to walk out with a treat. Adults' favorite was rum cake and lemon cake, strudel and cliches. I'm still reminded of them by former customers. Bolton was always a familiar and community business. Each of our boys began working at the bakery after school at Saturdays around age 13. When they got older, they would often work Friday nights. Seeing how hard their dad worked and having him as a taskmaster was probably central to creating their work ethics and making them successful adults. By the time Eugene retired, he had 20 employees, but Eugene was still there every day and nights, and some nights. He liked to hire new immigrants. We had bakers from Holland, Yugoslavia, Austria, Italy, Hungary, and Vietnam. Some of them went on to start their own bakeries or other businesses. Others stayed at Bolton until they retired. Eugene always helped them to start their new life in this new country. They became like family. Even after they left Bolton, they would still come and visit. We always had several kids who had their first job at the back of the bakery, scraping trays, washing dishes, helping the bakers, or in the front, helping the customers. It was always a point of pride when many of them returned to visit as customers after starting their careers and families. In 1998, at age 75, Eugene retired and sold the bakery to Hilton and Michelle Dinner. Who expanded and updated the shop. They maintained the high quality and the good reputation of the bakery while putting their own mark on its character. Eugene died in 2004 at age 81. He didn't see many of the changes, but he was very impressed with the direction the bakery was taking. The Edelman family is forever grateful to the leaders for that care and love they instilled in their business. Sadly, Hilton passed away in 2020, and Bolton once again has new owners, Jerry and Edgar Samuel. Jerry worked for Hilton for many years and continues the commitment to quality that was so important to Gene and that to Hilton. I am sure they too will make their own changes, but trust that Bartod will continue to thrive under the management as one of the oldest bakeries in Edmonton.